Hello, folks. I'll give it a minute or two here for people to join up. I'll give it just another minute here for folks to arrive. All right, I think we have a pretty good critical mass, and it's 2 past the hour, so I am going to get started. As always, we've got the standard location for the meeting minutes. If you could drop your name in there on attendance, I would appreciate it. And then keep in mind that we are recording this and it gets posted to YouTube for posterity and all of the world to see, so behave accordingly. I know you all do and will. So usual standing agenda really at this point. I want to start out with features again. We've got Stephen this week. Last week I spent quite a bit of time starting to read through. I mean, across that set of 66 or so features, there is a ton of information. There's a few things in there maybe that I feel are a little worrying, but I want to see what the features team, if there's anything that you have thoughts on that you want to share there.
Yeah, so yes, the features are kind of daunting at this point. We've got a few features that are currently quote unquote at risk, which means they don't have the required information. But I'm kind of giving them a pass because they said they were going to get the information. So I'm doing a kind of like a set of follow-ups right now. There are a few features that are kind of like we're I guess new to the process of dealing with a feature like that. So core DNS becoming the default, right? Would be one example. So it sounds like it sounds like it's going to be pushed to 113, pending the results of a survey. But in addition to handling it becoming the default, we also have to handle the deprecation of QPNS, right? So that is still a pending question. So there are a few like weird ones in here that I'm still trying to track down. I didn't have as much time yesterday, not yesterday, but last week, kind of on a customer visit. But I'm going to be working on that today and tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe send out an email status to the team later this week.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, and
quick question.
Go ahead.
For 66 features, you are taking a look at the features and seeing what's missing in terms of tests and docs and release notes, or are you doing more than that, like trying to understand the feature? I just wanted to know if you'd need any help there and what exactly are we looking at?
Yeah, totally. So for an initial pass, basically everything up to feature freeze, I try to make sure that it is well described, has the proposal, and essentially all of the docs. If it's graduating, I set all of the doc statuses to needs update. If it's coming in as new, I say that the docs are required. The tests, usually we don't have a good shape of what that should look like until people kind of set what the features are going to be. So I haven't looked at tests specifically. This next sweep that I'm going to do this week, we'll do that as well.
Okay.
From my perspective, I've been trying to go through to just understand. So, I mean, some are easy, like the switch default DNS plugin to core DNS. Like you can read that and kind of understand what it is. A number of the other ones are maybe not as clear, especially if you don't have the domain knowledge within the SIG. So I've been trying to invest the time to go in and at least have a mental map of what's what. And then I've been attending the SIG meetings as well, where so like if you sort the spreadsheet by SIG, it's easier than to say, okay, like this SIG has these 6 things, kind of pop into the meeting and have a pulse of where they are and what the outlook is kind of looking like. It's still early. Some of these things are just really getting moving, haven't seen code associated with them yet. But then at the same time, we're down to, is it 30 something days to the release? I mean, since Master Branch opened, it's been about 60 and we've got about 30 remaining. So I'm kind of wanting to see things getting a little more concrete at this point. Otherwise, sometime fairly soon, we kind of start transitioning into a phase where I'm thinking we're kind of raising the flag with the SIG saying, hey, is this really on track? Because we don't want to create a whole bunch of extra teamwork here where we're tracking and trying to push for whether it's doc updates or tests or just understanding the state and health of things that have been where the SIG's either just clearly not on track or is explicitly internally decided that they're not going forward. So because the process is a little kind of ad hoc on collection of features and tracking of status, and with the milestone munger now turned off, it's kind of on us to collectively have that pulse.
Are you also letting, when you sit on these SIG meetings, are you letting the SIGs insight into the other features in the spreadsheet so that they'll know if there's any interplay between the different features or not?
There were a couple where I wondered initially if there was a interconnect, and since I hadn't seen it, I was going to ask, but then once I got a little more understanding, I realized that no, there wasn't. So I personally haven't seen ones, but if anybody else is going through and feels like, hey, does this impact SIG-Foo? Has SIGBAR talked to SIG-Foo? I'm not seeing artifacts of that. Raise it.
Okay.
Because it takes a minute to ask, and if they go, oh no, we should, we've done our job, and if they say, oh no, it's not necessary for this reason, then we can copy paste that into the issue or write it down and just give the clarity for the record.
Okay, cool. I'll start taking a look at these a little bit more closely. Henceforth. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, may I ask a question about?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So Jen Rondeau brought up to me, she said that she had heard some buzz around SIG release or other SIGs about a move from the default container runtime interface being Docker to container D. Had anybody else heard anything about that? I looked through the feature tracking sheet, saw nothing about it, and didn't know if anybody had.
I haven't personally seen that. I can say from the Red Hat perspective, at least, that we're going to be moving to Cryo for our runtime. But yeah, I haven't heard anything from the upstream community about making that a default or making anything a default, really.
Just for my edification, is Cryo separate from Container D?
Yes,
I have a picture, I think. Let me see if I can, because I've had trouble keeping track of all of the potential options here. So let me see if I can share
CRIO
this
is just
picture.
a way to plug in different types of runtimes, so Docker or Container D or whatever you want to use it.
Okay.
Docker has a Docker shim today. That's the CRIO plugin default today. So when you say Docker is the default runtime, that's the
the Docker shim is going away.
Yeah.
And there will be just CRI compliant runtimes available in some future.
Yeah, I meant today. Yeah.
Yeah, Cryos is Red Hat's. Container D is largely Docker, and Google have been working on that.
Do we know when in the future, like when you say in the future, I mean, Docker shim is going away and we're going to move towards something else? Is there an outside date where we think that's going to happen?
If I recall correctly, it was going to be this release or next that Docker shim was going away. There's not going to be a default as such, and like you can't see my scare quotes. But so there's not a, I guess, an opinion of containerd versus cryo, for example, versus like fracd or something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discussion about movement, but I feel like it's been more from localized areas, and I'm not convinced I've heard a clear overarching direction here.
I have not either. I'll just share, like, there is increased attention being paid to making sure we are thoroughly testing the behavior of pods at the individual node level. And that probably includes testing different container runtimes. I know SIG cluster lifecycle kind of, Tim St. Clair raised a bit of grief over the fact that it seemed like cluster lifecycle was getting dinged for issues that were really just container runtime issues. And so we want to make sure we've got better testing coverage to make sure that the different container runtime implementations are actually satisfying the contracts.
That test aspect, I think Tim St. Clair's really been pushing on getting. I think it totally makes sense from his perspective. There's a lot of ambiguity in what SIG cluster lifecycle bumps into then. And this is going to repeat all across the board, I think, whether it's CSI. Somehow CNI has managed to stay out of this, but then also as the cloud providers break out, there becomes this core, but all of these permutations and combinations of what can be around it, and whether we have solid testing of the abstracted thing, and at least for the release team, visibility on those peripheral parts is going to be really important. Because we don't want to make whether it's 112 or 13, 14, whatever, if we put out a release believing it works, but it only works with this sort of semi-mocked core thing, and we've actually broken everybody else because they didn't have CI and they weren't watching, but we pushed them out, like that would be a huge tragedy. So this is...
No, I totally agree. Like, it's probably not a SIG release thing, but there's like CSI, CNI, CRI. So you want like tests that make sure you're conforming to those implementations, but then we want to make sure that we can also verify that a given Kubernetes cluster, when having all those bits plugged in, still satisfies at the bare minimum the expectations of a conformant Kubernetes cluster. So I'm working through those challenges with individual owners through SIGNode and SIG storage at the very least. I'm not super familiar with the CNI story right now.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Zach, because I know I've kind of had this in the back of my mind, because these conversations, like I drew this picture for somebody almost a year ago as they were asking this question, and it's been an ongoing question where this stuff is going, and it's evolving.
Okay.
So. All right, I'll move on to CI signal a lot. It kind of feels like we fell off a bit of a cliff again over the weekend, maybe, or kind of Thursday, Friday. So where do things stand, Mohammed?
Yeah, so as far as tests are concerned, we do have a couple of tests failing again on the master release, master blocking. And there is one reopened on Qvarium, which failed again. So there's a discussion about that. I think Neil had already pointed out when I asked him. So based on that, but mainly right now, most of the tests are failing on upgrade. We have new failures. We have old failures which got fixed, but we have also new failures which are appearing on the master upgrade. So I've already started raising issues and pinging the people on that. But yeah,
do you have a sense at this point whether those particular upgrade failures? So we had a set of them over the last few weeks, but then it feels like there's more. The initial set were ones that cluster lifecycle had triaged to being not cluster lifecycle. The upgrade had happened, but then subsequent testing had failed. So I don't know if that implies we have something for API breakage or behavioral breakage that's a problem, that we're able to upgrade the cluster, but things that used to run are no longer. But this pattern feels a little worrying to me.
Yeah, that's something that Definitely, yeah. So that's something that I'm actually definitely need to dig into more, because there are some failures in upgrade which are not clear right now where they are failing. There are a couple of them which look like they are failing on upgrade tests, but that's something that I want to confirm with people. Maybe I'll try to get in touch with SIG testing and try to figure out whether they have any clue on that. Apart from that, of course, I've also tried to ping the SIG people themselves and see if they can say that these tests are not their problem. So if we can eliminate the SIGs, then we can probably pinpoint the source of the issue. That's what I'm working on right now, trying to eliminate like see where the tests are failing, pick those SIG guys, figure out if their tests are the ones which are problem. And if they say no, then it's probably not that SIG, and then it's probably something that you have to talk to SIG testing or something to try to figure out.
Okay.
Mohammed, yeah, I think it'll be worthwhile for you to talk to cluster lifecycle, because looks like all the tests are failing on upgrade itself. I don't think it's a SIG testing issue. I think at least today, if I look at them, they're all failing to upgrade. So that's, and if you see, that's why, yeah, we're not getting clean runs on any of those. I mean, all the GC ones, at least 4 jobs, they're all failing to basically even upgrade. So I think if you talk to cluster lifecycle folks first, Robert Bailey folks, they'll be able to look at this, because it looks like the upgrade itself is failing.
Yeah. So I'll ping Robert Bailey on those issues and see what I can get from them. And then in general, the cluster lifecycle.
Since I see Lubomir on the line, Lubomir, you'd mentioned on Slack that some things were tied to a particular Kubernetes Anywhere issue. Is there anything else you could share with us on what's going on there?
So there are a couple of ones that are basically blocked on a discussion right now, and those are Kubernetes Anywhere specific, but to my understanding, the upgrade tests are failing because of something else. And I need to investigate myself, I guess.
Okay, thanks. Okay, yeah, I see Gwen. Welcome back, Gwen. Do you want to talk a bit about where we are on bugs aside from these test failures?
Hi, I'm glad to be back. So bugs are basically super stable. Anything that has the milestone label currently on it, there's one little change. There's mostly the same bugs. 2 of them are getting lots of work, and 2 of them I basically prodded them today because I haven't seen any activity on it since June. So just being a little proactive on that. And then there's a new little bug that's actually an old bug that had their that's just recently gotten some attention. And oh, and my special mention is there is an issue. Yeah, that was the really old. No, there's a new bug. This one, 6.1, the priority important soon. There's a new one. That's an old one, but it's being worked on. So I wouldn't worry about that for now. And then the special mention, there's a bug that got closed, but the related PR was only a partial fix, and I think it was closed in error. So I'm following up on that. That is all recent from today. So I haven't really heard back on that yet.
Okay, so relatively quiet on that front.
Yeah.
Okay.
So technically there, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 bugs just because of that one. I'm not entirely sure if it's been fixed 100%. But okay. No drastic changes other than, you know, the massive ups and downs on the failing tests, which we've already mentioned.
And I just realized I did want to ask Mohammed about the failures in SIG storage, and I forgot to.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I just noticed that the bunch of failures, like there were at least 7-8 tests that failed on SIG storage. So I have already pinged them about it. I've not raised an issue yet because it's a single run,
Yeah.
but I've already pinged them on the channel and link them those tests so that they can take a look at it. If they can confirm that it's just if I see another failed run, I'll probably raise an issue against that. But for now, I'm trying to get the attention anyway.
And these are our scale tests, which don't run quite as often, so we don't get regular data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was slightly worried about those ones because so a couple weeks ago when we did the test grid run through, one of the bugs that I just happened to click on, I was like, oh, I think I know what's going on here. And I submitted a PR last week for a trivial little fix up for that one. But then I hit a whole, when I ran the E2E tests, I hit a whole bunch of weird failures. And then there was also an issue last week with something that was causing quite a bit of flakes and things failing to merge. So it seemed like there was something going on in storage, but I don't know if it was actually just kind of this unhappy coincidence of a bunch of flakes, but it feels a little worrying there.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to them. I'll try to get some answers from them for that. Yeah, so if I don't get answers in maybe a day or two, then I will definitely, even if there's no rerun, I'll raise an issue against it and mark it as illegal.
Okay. All right. So that was our main set of things: features, bugs, and CI signal. The one other thing I wanted to mention was that tomorrow we should be building our beta, and that should be happening from the branch, hopefully. So we're working through new things and all of these mechanisms. So it's easy to say we're going to build a beta tomorrow. We may have a fun day making it so. Caleb, are you, oh wait, did we lose? Oh, he is still here. Caleb, will you be around tomorrow if we bump into any quirks?
Yep,
Okay.
should be.
All right. And Doug, are there any questions you want to ask about it?
I don't have any questions right now. I need to figure out what time will actually work for me tomorrow. It might need to be later in the evening again. Unless we wait until Wednesday, I'm more wide open, but I think we should get it started in case we run into another permissions issue. And then I was also thinking, to get more of the shadows involved, we could do a live Zoom, or maybe better to do if I actually captured everything with script and then do a Zoom after we're done, so we can kind of go through it faster instead of, because it takes an hour to build, and then, I think that would probably be better for everyone. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I was thinking that this time, based on the prior, and that this maybe has the additional wrinkle of the branch creation, that if with a small group of people we go through, kind of nail it down, and actually then PR our draft doc that we have on what the process is, go ahead and PR that, and on the next one bring the shadows in to run through it all as a group.
Okay.
Hey Doug, can you include me in that? The Volga.
Yeah.
Thanks.
+1 for me too, just
Sure.
so that I can learn, even if there are issues, I can learn a little bit more. So it'll help me the next time around.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
I think maybe so. If Tim and I want to do it again, and I'll capture it with script, and then the next beta build, then we could do it. We could do it live.
It sounds like a good plan.
I'll invite everyone to the recap too.
Yeah, so we'll have a beta 1, a beta 2, and an RC1 that are technically on the calendar that we can do. So after this one, there's 3 more opportunities to. So I want to try to at least spare a bigger group from the pain of really going through the initial bits. But I think after this one, we should have the process doc that we had started relatively cleaned up, and then we've got 3 times to exercise it with the group. And then if I recall, oh no, we don't. The only thing in there would be the fast forwards of the branch. While you're out on vacation those couple days, Doug will have one of the shadows do that. But we've got a bit of time yet also for after we make the branch to start working on making sure the fast forward stuff is all clean and crisp before you're out. So that was the set of stuff I wanted to talk about today. We still have a half hour technically on the calendar, but I am happy to give the time back to folks. So open the floor to questions, and then we'll call it a meeting at whatever point there's no more questions. I see Gwen's hand up.
This is me not having done my own housekeeping. Is there a link for the test grid walkthrough?
That's a good question. Those are in the YouTube recordings.
Yeah,
I just don't know which one that is.
Yes.
Like I think I missed it, and then I never
the
bookmarked it, and it's
30th and 31st. So we did two of them. Mohammed did on the 30th and I did on the 31st. And then since we have Sigbeard here, there had been a mention back then by Aaron that maybe somebody might be interested in doing a little more cleanly scripted and videotaped walkthrough.
They are currently out sick,
okay,
unfortunately. And I would love to do that, but I also have 10 other things I should probably be doing instead. So I'm happy to collaborate or review if somebody else wants to do a walkthrough.
Okay. Who are they, and can I tap them for the contributor workshop?
I will have to talk to them and see. They're not usually active contributors in the open source stuff.
Anyway.
On the other note, getting back to the building of Kubernetes, the beta one, I just want to know is there a document that shows how we build or we used to build Kubernetes and release the bits? What's the process followed?
Yeah, just a second and I'll share the draft doc that we had started. So this is very much work in progress. I'm dropping it in the Zoom and I'll drop it in the minutes. And then I think after tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll take that doc and having gone through it once and then tomorrow exercising what we think we have, seeing if we run into any other issues, then we'll PR the contents over into Markdown.
Thanks, Tim.
I guess just in terms of major milestones this week, Cole, you're on the call. Are we good to do release 112 branch and start doing the daily fast forwarding stuff? And is the branch manager ready for that process?
I don't think I actually create the branch, right? I don't think I have permissions to do that, but I'm ready to set up all the jobs and stuff. I'm gonna start working with Common today and with some other shadows as well.
Yeah, during this period, it's fine. The jobs can delay a bit because they just track the master blocking ones right now.
Yeah, the jobs aren't until next week, they're 17th. That's Friday, right?
Yeah, end of the week.
Yeah, so the calendar is sort of we create the branch and build, and then we've got a few days to sort out getting the test up on it, and then we know that after this week we should have that stuff humming along.
But I'm going to get started on the test today, though, so we should be totally on track for that.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that, it being Friday. It wasn't on my today list, but that was a very good thing to bring up, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also looking at it from the perspective of we're removing the release 1.8 jobs, but I don't think that's impactful to this team. Just that's the thing I added to the schedule that we discussed a couple meetings ago.
Anybody else? Floor is open.
So if I have any Kubernetes building related questions, who is the right point of contact right?
Well, for the official builds, I think it would technically be Doug, but Doug is also going through the process of learning it, so it's kind of a mix. We're definitely leaning on Caleb, and I think he's also kind of a conduit for miscellaneous Google folks, so it's a bit indirect at the moment.
Ping me though.
Okay, thanks, Caleb.
Yep.
I guess maybe I do have one other question. Just now that I'm looking at the query Guinevere posted for issues, there are labels such as milestone needs approval and status approved for milestone that I am led to believe we aren't going to be using as part of this release cycle. Should we be removing those from issues?
Did we decide to stop using the labels or just stop using the munger to automatically complain about them?
That's the part that I hadn't
Clear.
quite figured out yet, and I sort of left on vacation and uninstalled Slack and all that. So
That's the way to do it on vacation.
For real.
So I'll go back through my notes, but I thought we weren't changing the usage of the labels to have them still marked by a SIG lead as definitely targeted. But then I also recall us having kind of rat-holed a bit on issues versus PRs. And
so I know like Steven's got an open PR on the milestone maintainer team that I linked in Zoom chat here that maybe we should figure out there.
Do stuff to that? Yeah, I should probably clean that up.
Yeah.
it almost feels to me that milestones at this point are like a SIG lead free for all right now, where my next plan was going to be for later in the week is just to look at bugs in general and not even, like just overall bugs, not milestone related bugs, and just making sure if they're possibly connected to some issues and should be in the milestone and bug people in that sense. Just because I just don't know that I necessarily trust that all the milestones have been added. I mean, that was probably the case before as well, but I've just decided to ignore the milestone needs approval labels at this point. I still have a column on the spreadsheet, and I'm basically playing around with just like nixing that.
So my understanding is, as of right now, the milestone needs approval label wouldn't even be getting applied. But
So say that one more time.
It wouldn't be getting applied because the milestone munger isn't on, right?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Right, but from my understanding of the last conversation, we're going to continue using the labels, just they'll be manually applied. Tim, you can jump in.
that's what I was thinking as well. But it is an interesting question. Like, if we're not, like, do we need those labels versus just having the milestone tag on it?
I guess the question is if SIG leads use that label in their search, right? To see if something needs attention.
If they have work to do, if they have attention, yeah. And then that goes back to the question of who all has the ability to assign the milestone label. If it's overly broad, random thing, or the ability to remove, also things come and go strangely. But I'm not sure that the milestone approval label dramatically changes that. So I definitely would like this to be simpler.
So just to refresh for context, the reason in the past that we didn't just say the milestone was signal enough was because there were a large number of people, and still are, who have direct write access to the Kubernetes repository. This means that any of these, I don't have the number offhand, but let's just say it's 70 plus people, could arbitrarily attach a milestone to their pull request because they want to get their code snuck in without a SIG lead having sufficiently checked it over. People just want quick fixes in, or maybe they really want to get their feature in under the gate. They don't want to have to go through the bureaucracy of talking to people about it and making sure people are aware what's happening. So we used this status label that only people within a certain GitHub team could apply. And then we would change our merging code to not merge PRs unless they had that additional label. So that's what the label is for, and if we want to still have that level of control, we can do that today. In the interim, we've since added a command where people can apply the milestone via a bot command, and it's gated to the same group of people. However, we haven't gone through and kicked out everybody who has direct access to the repo. So that hole, process hole, or whatever still exists. So like my personal opinion is less labels good, more labels bad. Friction is annoying. But yeah, I linked our discussion, and it's true that while we expressed opinions in our discussion of removing labels, we never actually came to that consensus. We just decided to turn off the bot that nags people about the labels. So I kind of leave it to you to suggest whether or not you want to now as humans have to remind people that they have to apply those labels or change the process to be simpler.
So I think we should kill the labels if possible, and one, clean up the documentation on my PR, kill the labels, and clean up the milestone maintainers group.
Yes, please.
So the milestone maintainers group discussion, though, we had a lot of opinions, and I feel like that is something that's maybe a steering committee level decision on who should be involved in whether we have an explicit or delegated.
No, not a steering committee level decision. This is totally your decision as
Okay.
lead, and you could argue it's the release team's decision. But I'm going to do the steering committee thing and
Okay.
like delegate it right
Well,
back.
that's fair. Okay, so I still haven't fully reviewed the proposal that Jace and the proposals that Jace and Steven are talking about, and it's sort of SIG PM, sort of SIG release.
Also sort of a SIG architecture. It's
Yeah.
a broad thing.
I want to have a better sense of what others are proposing for the long-term direction, and then I don't want to go and make too drastic of a change like this week and for the next month then, or the next 6 weeks, if there's a loose consensus starting to form around a particular direction. I'd prefer to at least be semi-aligned with what might be that direction. So I will prioritize getting finished reading through those today and then make a decision and update. I personally like the idea of having the SIG leads approve explicitly, just because it gives me some sense of, okay, subject matter expert in an area that I am not, and across all of the set of SIGs, the release lead is never going to be, just to give that, even if it's just a single bit of information, a little bit of some visibility that somebody has thought about it. But if that bit, part of our discussion here is that bit has not been a reliable bit of information. So I will do some thinking, and Stephen, if you update your issue, then I'll chime in later today or tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. So from the perspective of those two proposals, my proposal specifically was meant to solve the idea of like issue triage, right? Issue and feature issue triage. And Jace's proposal is kind of like long-term, but the last conversation we had was that we should find a nice meeting point in the middle, and we haven't necessarily found that yet. So definitely read the proposals, but know that they will probably, be morphed into some singular proposal at some point. But yeah, I will do an update for that milestone PR and all the issue stuff.
When is the next SIG PM? We've got a SIG PM tomorrow. Okay. All right.
I'm not sure that it will be solved by then.
No, not necessarily expecting that either. But if I kind of come to something that I think is a sense of where y'all are thinking you're wanting to go, and whatever my decision is within that, I'll have a brief discussion tomorrow there about it as well.
Okay, sounds good.
And then we do also have a SIG release meeting tomorrow afternoon, so we can, if I'm looking at my calendar correctly, yeah. So between the two of those, by tomorrow, Aaron, you'll probably have a message saying remove some more labels.
Yay! I probably won't be able to make that meeting tomorrow, but I am fully behind whatever solution you come up with and feel is best for the community.
Okay. And then we'll see. I still have this nagging feeling that we're going to finish in September and go, holy crap, that was a mess. We had so many surprises, but Fingers crossed we don't have that outcome, and we'll see how we evolve this. All right, anything else anyone wants to talk about? Sigbeard yields the floor. All right, I'll give you all 20 minutes back, and this meeting will be on YouTube a little bit later, and I'll send out an email to the release team and to the some set of Google Group mailing lists with some decisions. All right, have a great rest of your day, start of your day for whichever time zones you're in, and then we will repeat this discussion tomorrow morning and get a little more update on issues and CI signal especially. So have a great one.
Take it easy, everyone.
All right.
Later.